Hey, how's it going? It's Grant with the Garden of Eater, and today's video is going to be all about saving my buddy's fish room. He's got a bit of dilemma with the wife, and she wants to drastically cut down on the amount of tanks that he has. In fact, if she has it her way, he's going to have no tanks left in the house at all. So we've got about 12 months to fix this issue, turn her opinion around, and save his fish room. So I've got some tips and tricks on how to make the spouse happy. So let's get started. So the fish room that needs our help belongs to my buddy Eddie, who I've known since high school, so a little over a decade now, has been keeping shrimp for over 7 years. Shortly after we started keeping and breeding shrimp, we were hanging out, and it seemed Eddie was spending most of the time we were hanging out staring off into the shrimp tanks, and not before long, he was asking about keeping his own tank. Shortly after that, he had not one, but several tanks, and it seemed like he took off with the multiple tank syndrome, and at any given time, he had around 20 to 40 tanks. When Ed first started keeping tanks, he had a little apartment where he was putting tanks wherever he could. I remember he even had a crayfish tank in the bathroom. It wasn't long before he moved out into a bigger spot where he was able to dedicate an entire room for his shrimp tanks. And he didn't just stop with the fish room, he also put tanks all over the living room, built into the wall like little shelf racks, as many as he could possibly fit in at the time as well. All of the tanks in the living room, as well as the fish room, were all hooked up to one airline system. He also used LED lights, making everything very cheap and cost efficient. So having a buddy like Eddie is great. Having someone that passionate and invested into the hobby, that lives that close to you, that is a good friend, is great to do projects with, bounce ideas off one another, as well as go halves on large bulk orders. Like we would buy large packages of shrimp together, split them down the middle, and hopefully we both had success. However, if one of us was having issues, we could help each other out, or if we were both having issues, we could both try different things, see what works, relay that information back to one another, so that way we increase our chances of success in breeding our shrimp. And so yeah, Eddie really does enjoy these tanks. He enjoys the hobby, everything about it. He likes going to the shows, he likes going to our clubs, he likes coming home and decompressing, looking at the tanks. It is a big stress reliever, very therapeutic. So you might be asking, why is his wife trying to get rid of his tanks? And well, to start it off, they had a baby. So right away, you're probably thinking, that fish room got turned into a nursery. And, well, it did. However, that did not stop Eddie from keeping his fish tanks. He quickly turned his porch into an enclosed room where he walled off everything, insulation, and AC unit, so that way all the temperatures can be kept constant throughout the entire year. However, this was during COVID, and with the baby and everything like that, he thought it would be best to do everything on his own, and he could only do so much in a short amount of time. So everything was kind of rushed and not done the way he would like it to be set up. So now you're thinking, problem solved, he's got a new fish room, crisis diverted, right? And well, just like Steve from our past video on buying another shrimp room, Ed is also a big time entrepreneur. Ed's got many side hustles going on, including notary, photography, DJing, as well as taking over the family business. However, DJing is the part that is taking up too much storage inside the house, as well as a drum set, and that is where the wife wants to take up the fish room, which was the porch, and use that as a new storage locker. So now we've petitioned against that. However, I do think we are going to lose a good portion of the fish room. They just need some storage and they can sacrifice it. However, we just do not want to see the entire thing gone. But if she has it her way, the entire fish room will be converted into a storage area. However, storage is not her only argument for getting rid of the fish room. There are many pros and cons to having a fish room. However, one of the biggest cons to owning and operating a fish room is going to be the cost of properly maintaining and making it look good and having the fish not only live but thrive. And that brings us to one of the ways that we're going to help save this fish room. And for that, it took some calculations. So we added up all the expenses Ed has spent in the hobby over the last 7 years or so. This includes tanks, stands, filtration, as well as utilities and livestock. And we got a little over $3,700 per year. And just to be safe, we're going to round that up to $4,000. And so to achieve this goal, I'm going to help Ed set up 10 tanks that I feel are good profit makers for him, that he'll be able to achieve his goal, where each tank will make roughly $34 per month. So that is the goal for this project, is by the end of the year, not each tank making $400 itself, but each tank by the end of the year will be making roughly $34 on average in profit, so that way they can say that they are spending no money on the fish hobby itself, that his hobby is truly paying for itself. And just doing some quick planning and going over things, we do know we have room for more than 10 tanks. So these are just going to be starting tanks, the foundation for which we can get things going and moving. And these are going to be his main priority. However, he might have some more tanks that are going to be just for fun because, hey, everybody likes keeping a little bucket list animal every now and then. But before we get to that point where he's got 10 tanks that are cranking out $34 in profit each month, we've got some things to take care of first. And the very first issue that we're going to address is his algae issues. There's a few tanks and a few clumps of moss where I pointed out that it was just better for him to just throw it out in the trash than have to deal with and get rid of the hair algae. Then after manual removal, the next thing I usually do is turn down the light cycle. However, all of his lights are already on timers, and that was not the issue. The issue is lack of water changes, and you just can't blame the guy. A new baby, you just don't have the time to do and keep up with everything like you usually did. However, if he wants to make this goal, he's going to have to pick up and stick to a routine water change schedule. Then going through the tanks, looking through the mosses and stuff like that, I realized that Ed has another issue that I've been dealing with myself. And that issue is he has multiple different types of moss growing in the same clumps. And the problem with that is it might look good and some people don't have an issue with it. However, when you go to sell it, a lot of people do not want to just sort through and go through the different types of mosses to get separate different clumps of pure moss growing. So for that reason, mixed moss usually sells for about half the price as pure non-mixed moss does. I pointed out a couple shrimp colonies that are no longer in high demand, like the Tibes and the red pintos, where they're just heavily dropping in price, where it might be better to get rid of those colonies and work with something else that'll help make his demand and reach his goal a little bit better. However, I did point out that he had at least 8 colonies of shrimp that he could continue to breed and grow out, that he would easily be able to sell 5 to 10 of those shrimp per month and make his goal of $34 a month. So I asked Eddie to put some thought behind it, and in the next video, we'll go over what 7 colonies he decided to keep. I asked him to just narrow it down to 7, so that way it leaves me with 3 tanks that I know are for sure proof, gonna make him a more profit than any other tanks he's ever had before. So we're gonna set those up in the future video. So you're gonna wanna stay tuned for that, especially because those are money makers for sure. They are foolproof on making over $34 a month, and they are super easy to take care of with low maintenance. Also, while going around and looking at his tanks, I found some really interesting moss that I'm pretty sure is just some mini pelly that's growing in some very low light conditions. However, it would be really neat if it continued to grow like this. And I took some home and tried it out for myself. So I've given Eddie a lot to think about, as well as added a few things to his to-do list. But basically, our plan is to head on over to Eddie's house once a month, get some work done, do some updates, and basically go through his progression on meeting his goal of $4,000 per year. I love a challenge, and Eddie's a great guy, so I love to help him out. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. However, if I can have your attention for just another moment, please. Our hobby seriously needs your help. They are trying to pass a law that'll make it illegal to ship anything that is not whitelisted across state lines. That's basically anything besides cats and dogs would be illegal to move across state lines. So we need your help. Go to usarc.org to learn more about this issue, and most importantly, reach out to your senators
and tell them to vote no on this new Lacey Act that is trying to be passed. It's very sketchy, last minute, under the rug type thing. So hopefully it won't go through and our hobby will be saved. Help out if you can. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.